Look, a deer. Can you see him? Look at that there. Ooh, I wasn't even set out to film this, it was just by accident. Oh look, there's another one. Oh, look at them. I bet there's another one somewhere kicking about. Isn't that a lovely shot? Buggers that, they eat everything. Look at all skin and bones. I don't know why people hunt them, there's no on them. There you go. Right, less of this madness. Let's talk about Land Rovers. Oh, not Land Rovers. The job in hand for today. I went to get some steel yesterday because I'm in the process of building up my balcony. My balcony's falling down on my house, so I've got to do it, and I'm going to do it in steel properly. Anyway, when I was there at the local shop, he said, and guy was all in a fluster and a dilemma. He says, "Oh, have you got time, mate, to have a look at my forklift?" So sure, let's have a look. Anyway, the wheel was all hanging off it, and hey, perhaps you can see if I zoom in here. Where is it now? It's down here. Let's have a look. Whoop. There we go. The bottom pin that goes in here, because it's like it goes like that, look, and it had completely, oh, there we go, focus, there, the pin had sheared off. You can probably see here numerous attempts at welding it in to stop it coming out. They'd built up the ball joint round here with weld to stop that dropping out, and we had to actually burn off the ball joint because he put the nut on upside down and welded it on. I think there's a little bit of African technology going on here. So with a bit of messing about yesterday, we got it off, and I'm going to take it down to the local machine shop because I ain't going to touch this. Well, I'll take it down for him because he's busy, but this needs an awful lot of serious machining and setting up to do. It's going to be quite difficult. So we're going to have a drive down, and we're going to see. We're going to leave it off at another machine shop, not my usual machine shop, because it needs to be bored out on a miller, bushings put in. Yeah, it's a right mess. And the thing is, this forklift here, it's a Clark, and you can't buy parts from anymore, so we're kind of stuck. And it's a small forklift, so you can get it inside his shop. It's got a triple mast on it, so it can lift up quite. It's kind of small forklift, but it'll lift up quite high. So let's go down to the machine shop. Some people said I made a roll cage for this Defender, but it isn't really. It's for carrying steel and wood, so I can have a nice long overhang. I think it's a bit illegal, but it doesn't really matter. I didn't have to go very far. But that's what that roll cage is all about. So this is my balcony on the back of my house. It's completely knackered and rotten. It's been washed here. So I'm going to replace it. I'm going to knock it all down and make it longer so it goes over there and to the end of the building, and then do the steps in a European style. Yeah, it gets quite humid here with all the trees and things like this. So, making a steel frame. So what I'm going to show you is something that you can use the same idea when you're making a trailer, for example. So let's get on with it. So we might as well do the a view from here, because you can see it at a distance. These are 24-foot long pieces of 2x3 1/8 thick steel, and I've started to cut them. That's why that one's got a bit of a tip in it, and I'm just going to turn them upside down and cut them to 20 feet. I've got another one there to go in the middle. It's going to be heavy, but it's going to be good. And I'm not going to paint it, I'm going to actually wax it. So that's, if you're wondering, will it go rusty? Now, as you can see, I've got it on 4 stands. But the idea is that I'm going to use a laser level to level it all up. So that means I can put blocks of wood and lift it and lower it to get it completely level. And then I can square it, and I'll show you how we do that. And then it's just a matter of just welding a cross brace in, and that frame is almost done. Quick, eh? So I've cut the ends off, but something else is interesting happening today. We just had this road graded, and what they're going to come down now and spray calcium on the road to bind it. See, this is what they do. Calcium chloride. There you go. And that'll bind it all together and stop the dust. And also make your cars go rusty. Good, eh? Right, next, now I've got those cut, let's get to the next bit. When you've cut the ends of the steel, I just used a grinder because it was too big to manhandle into my chop saw. But finish the ends, take all the burrs inside and outside off with a buffer like this, a flat wheel. You know, they're not expensive, they make a nice smooth finish, but you know, these have been cut off rough, and there's all lots of like razor sharp edges, so this will just finish it off and it makes life easier. Also, before we weld, it's good to take the mill scale off where you're going to weld. So again, these are really handy. So the next thing we're going to do is cut the 5 foots, because I'm doing these at 5 foot. So what we're going to do, I know it's in feet, but I've only got a bloody feet tape measure. The tube's 2 inch wide, so we're going to take 4 inches off 5 foot and weld them in the middle of the tube. So I'll do that because cutting off's a bit boring. Right, back in a minute. Our local steel supplier is not blessed with the best quality. I think all this stuff's made in China because it's starting to go rusty, even just pulling it off the shelf. And it's not stamped made in Canada. It's a real shame really, but because we make steel in Hamilton. Well, we used to do, I'm not really sure now, but anyway, let me show you what you've really got to watch for when you're buying steel. One of the things is this: they have a habit of selling lengths that have been joined badly. Look at that. Now, would you put that on anything? No, I wouldn't put that on. So we buy steel that's been, you know, I got my 2 5 foots out of that, and I managed to cut this piece off. We'll probably make something for a Land Rover out of that. Scrap. Now, one other thing I wanted to mention: when you're grinding, just be careful of your car windows. Where is it? It's over there. Because the sparks can actually damage the glass. Now, I always try to, you know, always put your safety specs on as well, but grind opposite any vehicles or anything like that. The paintwork, well, not too bad, but the glass for some reason is very susceptible to marks. Now let's have another look at something else I've done. I've cut these down. Now these tubes here, they're going to be for the width, and they're going to butt up against the existing steel. So what I've done is I've cut 3 holes in there, and they're going to go at the bottom. And this allows me to do 2 things. It allows it to breathe. All right. Now why is that? If you enclose steel in a box, it'll sweat. And it's funny how it does it. You know, you think, well, where does the humidity come from? But it does. Now, when I built my first trailer here in Canada, I never thought of it. And when I came back to it, I was putting new boards on it, so I flipped it upside down. It was only a little box trailer, it wasn't very big. But this steel here had blown up to almost round with ice. It had got ice in it through humidity, and then it just swelled up over the years. Not good. And also it's running around rusty. So the holes that we put in here will do 2 things. It'll allow me to get air circulated round a closed in box section, and also it'll allow me to put some wax injection in, because that's what I'm going to do. I've got some paint that's like POR 15, so I think what I'll do before I put it on the deck, I'm going to, you know, go around it with a grinder and take as much mill scale off as I can, and rust, and give it a go with this like POR 15. Now, word of warning, you see what you're supposed to do with this mill scaley stuff, and let me show you what mill scale is. It's this stuff, it's this grey finish, and when it comes out the rolling mill, it's just like it's just a scale. But the thing is, you can't really get to the steel. You've got to grind that bit off, or sandblast it, or chemically remove it, really, before you put paint on. And that's why when it goes for galvanising, they put it through an acid dip, and it'll take all that stuff off. Unfortunately, I haven't got abilities to do that, so I'm going to have to do it by hand, degrease it with a power wash, and then you know, grind it off as best as I can. Never mind. Now you're going to say, why aren't I galvanising it? Well, the galvanising place is 200 kilometres away, and it's not too expensive to galvanise, but the thing is, I've got to go 200 kilometres there, drop it off, 200 kilometres back. A week later, 200 kilometres there, 200 kilometres back. There is no delivery service. What a bummer, eh? So that's why I'm not galvanising. Right, so now we've got all our pieces cut, it's time to sort of lay it out. Now, one thing that's vitally important, because I've fallen down this trap before, get your MIG welder out first. Why? Well, just make sure you're not going to be too short on your lead, because I haven't got a 220 outlet on the outside of the building. I've got one just at the other side of the wall. So I'm going to get the welder out, make sure I can get the welder, like, where is it now? 1 minute. So I can get the welder in the middle of here, and then we should be fine, because there's nothing worse than sort of getting one end tacked up and then finding out by the time you get to the other end you've got to move all your frames. So I'm going to move everything closer to the door. So I've roughly set up the frame, and like I say, if you're making a trailer or anything square, this is how you can do it. So what I've done is I've got the two pieces parallel, and you can see here I've got a ratchet strap pulling them together. Now this is sort of a good idea and maybe not a good idea, but I'm on my own, so it's a bit of a fiddle about. What I'm going to do is this: I've put the ratchet straps to pull these sides together, you see, so they're pulling together. The problem with that is, because it's such a long length, it's going to start to bow like this. So the idea of what I'm going to do next, to make life a lot more easier, on this corner here, I'm going to weld a tack on here, and then I'm going to do the same at the opposite corner over there. Which measurement? That one over there. That one there. And the reason for that is, then I've got two L shapes, so I can sort of put them together. But I don't know if you can see, that still doesn't guarantee if it's square or if it's like this. Alright, I'll show you how to do that in a minute, but first of all, let me get a decent tack on here, because you see what's happening is, because that steel is bowing in like this is not touching now. There's a gap here, so the piece actually pivots. So what we're going to do is just tap this forwards, put a weld on the top, and by putting a weld on the top it allows us to move it left and right and up and down. Hope that's clear, and then we'll show you the next stage. So I've just tacked that corner, and I'm going to go and tack the far corner. I just want to show you that I use a carpenter's square, a big square like this, to make sure you've got the first one at 90 degrees. A small engineer's square isn't really good enough. It's okay, but it's not really good enough. Now, if you're not sure, you can always use a tape measure to make sure it's square by marking out 3 foot, 4 foot, and the diagonal should be 5 foot. That rule will never ever change. Thank you, Mr. Pythagoras. So that will ensure that everything's square. So I'm going to check that now and make sure that piece is square. In fact, Bugger it, I'll keep this camera running. So I'm going to move all my bits and pieces off here. Up here I'm going to measure 3 foot. Up here I'm going to measure 4 foot. And the difference between the two is exactly 5 foot. That would have been embarrassing if it was like 5'2". Anyway, so we're going to do that, so we know that leg's mounted, and then once that's welded on the far corner, then we do our shimming to make sure it's level. Now, I might have to postpone that because I found out that it's too bright to use my laser level. I'd like to use my laser level to do it, but might have to think of something else. Watch this space. With the two diagonals now square and welded, I've noticed that one tube, how do we say? So these two are at 90 degrees to each other, and I've noticed they're actually like this, so they want leveling up now. And then the next thing we'll do to make sure it's square is we'll measure from one diagonal to the other. So we're going from that corner to this corner. Sorry, everything's backwards for me looking at this. So we're going from diagonally opposites, and we'll check the length. So we check the length first to make sure we're absolutely spot on, and then we check the diagonals, and that will tell us if we've actually got the square frame. The next thing is to make sure we've got no twist in it. That's going to be tricky because, like I say, I wanted to use my laser. Let's see what we can come up with now. I've now tacked up all 4 corners. I'm almost sure it's about right, I think. Now, the laser isn't worth a light, literally, in this weather because it's too bright. So what I'm going to use, good old spirit level. So now I'm going to start blocking up on these stands to make sure it's all level. I would have liked the laser because I could have put the laser in the middle and gone round and round with it and made sure it was all the same height. Anyway, it's too bright. So let's get leveling. So after about 3/4 of an hour of messing about, I'm now ready to set the diagonals on this. It's about 5mm out of square. But you can see, just looking at the blocks here, how far I've had to lift that corner compared to this corner. So this is my lowest point. So we're going to make, well no, that's the highest point, so we're making every other stand, shimming it up. So I've got the level on, because I couldn't use a laser level, and everything's fine. So all we're going to do now is check the diagonals. And Jerry's just turned up to give us a hand. What timing, Jerry? So we measured it up with Jerry, and it was negligible, but we want it right. So what I did was I put a couple of ratchet straps, joined them together, and literally one click on the ratchet strap, once it got some tension, one click moved it beautifully. So now it's square, now it's level, now we're going to weld it. Now typically it's a sort of a bright day, and Jerry's just gone and volunteered to go down into the town and pick up a lighter shade welding mask, because I've got a green screen in there, which is for like stick welding, and you know, that's okay for inside stick welding, but when you're outside doing MIG welding, it's just too dark. So we'll change the screen, get this welded up, and then I can cut the middle piece, put the middle piece in here, because we're putting another tube inside, and should be good to go. So there's my frame made. It's all nice and square, all nice and level, no twists in it. I had to miss a bit out of this when I was doing the welding, because they were cutting a tree down next door with 2 chainsaws, You couldn't hear yourself think. So anyway, that's ready to put in. I've put a lifting eye in the middle, so that should work. And tomorrow, got to take the old balcony down and shove this one in. And there's sort of one of the planks. They're 12-foot planks, but we're going to cut them in half and put them this way on. Should be strong enough. But what we plan to do is cantilever it off the side of the building first, and then put some supports in later. Just weld some supports in. And the reason why we're doing it out of steel is because I can weld it. But if you're making a trailer, it's the same technique. It doesn't matter. You know, just get them parallel, get them level, get your angles all right, and everything should work out quite nice. You know, and then it'll be nice and square. Because once you've got a nice square base to work off, life's a dream after that. Alright, see you in the next video. Bye.